J.J. Watt chimes in with his reaction to the news that the Texans are looking for a new GM. Chris, you read this tweet so well during the break. I'm going to throw it to you. Give us J.J. Watt.
You're such
Give us some J.J. Watt. Come on.
Well, I called J.J. Watt Captain America, so I was just like, I just want to win, man. I don't care who, how, what. I just want to win. Go Texans and go America.
That is just like a deeper version of Captain Andrew Luck.
It is a little bit. Without the little twang, right.
It's not quite the British vampire that Captain Andrew Luck comes off as. That actually sounds more like Captain Andrew Luck.
You miss Captain Andrew Luck? Nearest
I miss
Florio.
No, I don't miss. No, I did, but it went away quickly.
I will be back soon. It's almost training camp.
Brian Gaine went away quickly, 17 months on the job as the general manager of the Houston Texans. Where do they go from here? We touched on this earlier, but look, I see two different paths, and this is exactly the analysis that we had as the Jets were looking for a new GM. You can hire somebody that the coach knows, likes, and wants, or you can go out and get the best person for the job, irrespective of whether or not that person has any prior relationship with Bill O'Brien. When you do that, you hire a GM who comes to town with a short list of coaches that GM has been waiting for years to work with, and you put a clock on how long until the next dysfunction happens, whether it's the coach gets another GM fired or the GM gets the coach fired. So, indications are it will be an O'Brien guy,
right?
Which means put everybody together on the same page, fused at the hip, equal accountability. Everybody succeeds or everybody fails. And if you're going to do this, if you're going to hire a new GM while you're getting ready for a football season with a head coach in place, it only makes sense to do it that way.
Yeah, it does. I mean, as much as this firing, I think, caught us all, by surprise to a degree. We had heard some of these rumblings there, and oddly enough, this is where I would say with Billy O'Brien. I mean, I think he's a hell of a coach. You mentioned that kind of the similarities with the Jets. It's a good time to try to find the next GM of your football team right now. This is the appropriate time to make this move. There's nothing a front office is doing. They're getting ready to go on vacation for a few weeks here in a few days. So this is the time to do it. And we felt like the Jets process in hiring Joe Douglas got kind of expedited once the Texans fired Gaines, because I would bet they were a little scared that they might call Joe Douglas and be like, hey, we'd like you to come down here and talk to us. But I just ultimately get the feeling that it's going to shake out a little like the New York Jets, Mike, where we're going to get a GM where, just like Gase with Joe Douglas, he knows him a little bit, so there's certainly a relationship, but they're not making a hiring for a guy just to appease the head coach or that guy. I think that's where these New England guys come into play here for Billy O'Brien. I don't think Billy O'Brien's ever going to be happy down there until he gets the organization run the way he saw it run in New England.
I want to put a period right after there.
Right.
I don't think Billy O'Brien's ever going to be happy down there. Period. It just look. 2016.
Yeah.
Right. When we're trying to figure out at the end of the year who's going to stay and who's going to go, because every year 6 to 8 coaches are fired or leave. All of a sudden, late in the season, there was an overwhelming sense that Bill O'Brien was going to be gone from the Texans. Not because he has an issue with Houston. He had an issue with the Texans, with the structure. And like you said, he's trying to make it into a quasi-Patriots organization. The question is, will new owner Cal McNair allow him to do that? And can they put enough power on the table to get a Nick Caserio? Does Caserio even want to leave? He's been there 18 years, Chris. They've won 6 championships. Wouldn't you want to hang around for number 7?
No.
Or do you want to go? I mean, really, right? Do you want to become a GM of a new team in June? The hay's already in the barn. Your hands are already tied for the 2019 season.
Yeah, no, you're right. They are. They're tied. There's no heavy lifting to do other than he's going to get started. If you got a GM, they're going to get started on guys I think could be, roster cuts as far as training camp, and you start to build there. But this gives the new GM the chance to kind of get his feet within the organization before he has to worry about his first big tests, which are free agency and the draft and all of that. So, again, I just look at it and look at guys, like a Nick Caserio, who is up in New England, who's phenomenal. And you're right, Mike, he's in a spot where, gosh, all they do is win. But at some point, I look at Nick Caserio, and I have, the ultimate respect for him. He would be GM candidate number 1 if Chris Sims was running a football team. I know. know that. He is amazing that way. Ultimately, I would think he'd want to call some shots and maybe put his own stamp on a football team. I know he's brilliant. He does a lot of good things up there, but we all know who's making the final call up in New England at the end of the day. I mean, it doesn't matter if Nick Caserio says blue, 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 blue is the best. You know, if Belichick comes in and says red, it's going to be red, and that's just what he has to deal with. And I wonder at what point does he get sick of that and want to do his own thing.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And how much power will he have? How much power will be available for the new GM? Will the Patriots be able to block any effort to interview a Nick Caserio or Amani Ossenfort? And if so, will Bill O'Brien and the Texans have to go to someone who isn't currently tied to a team like a Scott Pioli? Right. That may be the only way to get the Patriot way into Houston, because Pioli can be hired without any team saying yes or no to the potential interview based upon the power that's available. So very intriguing, and the clock is ticking. I'm sure they'd like to have this done by the time training camp opens, because, Chris, you know how it goes. The moment camp opens, guys get injured.
Yes.
Guys don't perform well. Guys need to be replaced. You better have somebody who's making those calls who can bring new guys in, because the coach doesn't have time to screw around with them.
Yeah, you're right. And I think that was probably part of the problem with Brian Gaine. I would look at it and go, man, they had offensive line issues last year. They were very slow to replace guys, put guys together. They had a few injuries where I'm sure it just wasn't up to speed with Billy O'Brien. But, yeah, training camp is not easy on a GM.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.